Hi, my name's Lynn Calloway. I'm a retired special educator from Southwest Ohio. I've also had the privilege of spending the last 16 years of my career working with families. I also have a sibling who has a developmental disability, and I am the mother of a son who has a physical disability. So I've had lived experience. I was asked to be here today to talk about charting the life course and my experiences with it. The first time I heard about charting the life course was in 2014, when Shelley Reynolds came to Southwest Ohio to speak to a group of us through the University Center of Excellence in Developmental Disabilities. I was immediately struck by several things. First, the lexicon. The vocabulary was accessible. It's in plain language, and it's owned by the person who is using it. I love the fact that it took the burden of learning the language of a system off of families and put that responsibility on the system itself to translate. That it was stabilizing. I love the fact that once it was done, it seemed to just stand. That no matter how many systems changed in your life, how many ways you interfaced with other parts of service support in your life, this still stood. The language still stood. You could still ask for what you needed, and it was transferable. The other thing I liked about it was its universal appeal. It could be used anywhere with doctors or teachers, administrators, the DD services system. It could be used anywhere that you are in your life. Your employer, very universally appealing. The other thing was, oh my goodness, it's so easy to use. And finally, I appreciated that it was flexible. It's a living, breathing document that might change at any time. I also immediately started to use these tools. And as I did, I realized, man, I wish I'd had these as my son was growing up, and I really wish my mother had had them when my sister was growing up. So allow me to introduce my sister, Leah. She is a budding artist and someone with a strong work history. Leah is the youngest of 4 sisters. We lost our mom and then our father 8 years later in 2016. Today, I'm the one who safeguards her vision and coordinates care along with my spouse. Leah and I are both aging, and she struggles to manage some complex health issues, and losing our parents was really hard on her. Where she lives is really the most important thing here, though. She lives in a really hip, urban, young, walkable, safe community. Her apartment building is HUD subsidized, and but staffed by DD Services, certified residential provider. There's public transportation, and an Uber can show up at her door within minutes. She's known to everybody in her community. The staff at Fresh Market, Kroger, you name it, coffee shop, Leah knows them. She's an emerging family historian, and she's thoughtful. She's creative, and she knows the lyrics to every song ever. And she continues to search for just the right balance of independence and support in her life. So it was in 2019, a few years after my father died, that Leah pulled me aside and told me that she wanted to move closer to my husband and I in the suburbs. So because she'd had exposure to charting the life course trajectory, tools that I fell in love with, I shared with her. We immediately pulled it out, and she told me the way she felt. She said she wanted to live closer because she wanted to feel safe, and she wanted to stay healthy. She has some health issues that kind of scared her to be alone, to manage herself, in spite of the fact that she had support on site. She said she wanted a walkable community. She wanted to continue to grow as an artist, and she was volunteering at a studio. She wanted to keep doing those things. But she was tired of the drama. And she told me something I didn't know, that she was afraid to walk alone in her community when it was evening, which is not something she'd ever expressed. So we took this and reviewed it. We talked about it and we put it aside. I gave it to her. I took a picture of it with my phone. And in a couple of months, we came back to it, the conversation. This time we used the integrated support star, and we looked at her personal strengths and assets, the things that she's able to do on her own as they related to where she would live. We looked at her relationships. We took a look at, her community assets and what we just, and technology, of course, because that was a big part of her life at this time. Leah could ask for help. She can use a cell phone. She's someone who was working out at the time, so she was really healthy. She's a social butterfly. She has a full life and she's connected. What she needed was more income in order to make this move, and a lot of support with the change that it would bring. I really want to focus on technology for her because that's something that would go wherever she moved. At the time, she was using Google Home to set meal alarms and do meal planning. She could wait for the Uber. I could follow the ride on my phone. She had a GPS medical alert bracelet. So if she had a medical emergency or her numbers dropped, she could call for help herself. She was using continues to use a CGM, a continuous glucose monitor. So I can see her glucose levels wherever she is, as well as, because she could see them primarily, but sometimes she'd forget to look at them. So I could also track them and remind her. What she needed at that time was remote monitoring. I do want to move to the eligibility specific area. Leah was receiving DD services and continues to today. She has on-site personal care and support, and she has Social Security. But what she needed in order to live in the suburbs was a voucher. So we moved forward. Time passed. We talked about the fact that Leah's desire to move would depend on her having more money, and she realized that. What I really loved about using the tools was that it elevated our conversation. Had I not used them, I probably would have, or had I not been aware of them, I probably would have quickly told her all the reasons I thought it wouldn't work. Leah, you don't have enough money. Leah, we don't have a lot of sidewalks in the suburbs. You know everybody in your community. Why would you move? I don't think that would have been the most effective way to address her request. By using the problem-solving star, though, we were able to really talk about things deeply, and for her to really have an opportunity to analyze what she wanted and how what she had would get her there. She decided, I don't think I can afford to live in the suburbs. But then we had 2021. I don't think you remember the pandemic of that year, but during that time, Leah lived with my husband and I for 3 months. During that time, we talked again. I should say after that time, we talked again about her desire to move. And after spending 3 months with me, she had different feelings. So we did another trajectory sheet, and here's what she told me. This is what changed. She wanted to live closer to me after the pandemic. She said she'd rather live closer to her friends and community. She also told me she no longer wanted to work. And another thing that changed was she wanted a place to live where she felt valued. That hadn't been part of her conversation before, and could very well have been part of her experience of living with us during the pandemic. The things that she said she didn't want for her life that were different from the previous 2 years was, she said she had too many people directing her. Again, very likely an outcome of her having experienced having direct supervision for the first time in 15 years. So we took a look at the integrated star again. And some things had in fact changed. We were still looking at where she would live, but I'd like to kind of direct your attention to the remote support section of the technology, rather, section of the star. At this point, Leah had acquired remote supports. And she felt a little safer because now she had a CGM. She could see her numbers in real time on her cell phone. I could still track them, but now her remote support team could see them 24/7 as well. So she had that additional sense of security. The unfortunate thing is that Leah still did not have the funding she needed if she wanted to move, and that she had chosen not to work was a barrier. And that was something that she chose and something that we discussed, and that came out as a result of us doing the integrated star. Thank you for listening to my experiences using the Charting the Life course tools, and I hope that you enjoy and appreciate them as much as I and my family do. Thank you.